يا مرحبا.
Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. This time, we're going deep, really deep, into the idea of hypocrisy as it's laid out in the Quran.
Ooh, okay. Hypocrisy, that's a weighty one.
It is, and we're focusing on verses 16 to 20 of Surah Al-Baqarah.
Al-Baqarah, so we're talking about
Yeah, the second chapter.
second chapter of the Quran. Got it.
You gave me these two scripts that analyze those verses, and honestly, they're so different in their approach. I'm really curious to see where we end up today.
Yeah, and you know what strikes me right off the bat? It's that these verses, they don't just like condemn hypocrisy. It's more like they kind of
Lay it bare.
lay it bare. Yeah, like almost a psychological profile of the hypocrite. You know what I mean?
Like that feeling we all get sometimes, that disconnect when we're like, yeah, I should be doing that good thing,
No,
but then we just don't.
We don't. And that's what makes it so relatable, right? Even if someone's not coming at this from a specifically religious perspective, we've all been there.
It's a human thing.
It is.
Mm.
And both these sources, they hit on that right away.
Okay, so how do these verses actually do that then? Paint that picture.
Well, so verse 16, it starts with this metaphor, like a terrible business deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, purchase error. It says, the
It's
hypocrites,
purchase error, so like,
they're choosing this misguidance over guidance.
ah.
What's the result? No profit.
So they're losing out big time.
Big time.
It's like pouring your life savings into some shady scheme thinking you're going to get rich quick.
Exactly. And what's wild is that this whole idea, it actually resonates even outside of a religious context.
You're right.
You see this in behavioral economics, like people are hardwired to make those bad decisions.
We see that all the time, right?
All the time, yeah.
Whether it's choosing, I don't know, that extra slice of cake instead of going to the gym.
Or sticking to some harmful belief, even when you know deep down it's just wrong.
So these verses, they're tapping into something pretty fundamental about us, huh?
They are.
Like we're all capable of making those bad deals, the ones that hurt us in the long run.
Exactly. And it's not always about, money or material stuff.
Right.
The Quran here, it's talking about spiritual guidance, like losing your way on that path towards truth.
Oh, I see. Straying from that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then things get even more intense with verses 17 and 18.
Oh, yeah.
There's this whole light and darkness thing going on.
Yeah.
Right, describing how a hypocrite thinks.
Light and darkness, yeah. And one of the sources, it points out that it's not simply about like knowledge versus ignorance.
It's deeper.
It's deeper. It's about actively closing yourself off from the truth.
Oh.
And then the verses go on to describe hypocrites as deaf, dumb, and blind.
Wow. Okay, but not literally, right?
No, not literally. It's metaphorical.
So cute.
It's about their unwillingness, you see.
Mm.
Unwilling to hear the calls for guidance, unwilling to express whatever truth they might actually know, and unwilling to see the signs that are literally all around them.
So it's like choosing to stay in the dark even though there's light all around?
Exactly. And even if they do have these moments of clarity, these little flickers of light, it's fleeting, temporary.
Like using a dying flashlight in a cave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A few steps forward,
Yeah.
and then darkness again.
And that image, wow, being trapped in your own darkness like that, that's powerful.
It is.
And a little scary, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it is. And that's kind of the point, I think.
And speaking of powerful, one of the sources brings in this whole other image, like a huge, scary rainstorm.
Oh, yeah, the rains.
Yeah, to show what it's like for the hypocrite.
It's interesting, right? Because it kind of shifts things. Like before, it was all about that internal struggle, the darkness.
Right, inside them.
Yeah. But now it's like there's this external force, something bearing down on them.
So all that stuff they were trying to ignore before, like the
Right.
calls to guidance, the truth, now it's unavoidable.
Exactly. Like you can't just close your eyes and pretend it's not there anymore.
So it's like all those consequences are finally catching up.
Right. And the source even describes them trying to block out the thunder.
Yeah. The thunder.
Yeah. Which you could think of as like those divine warnings,
Or maybe just like the weight of their actions crashing down.
Could be.
But they're still not giving in, are they? It's not like they're running for shelter.
Nope. They're just getting pounded by that metaphorical rain.
And it's not like they're enjoying it either.
No, they're terrified, but
But too stubborn to change, huh?
stubborn, that's the word. And isn't that just so human? Like we see that all the time.
Oh, all the time. It's like that saying, doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results.
Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting is the source mentions these moments of lightning in the storm.
Lightning, so like
These flashes of clarity, For a split second, the hypocrite sees the path.
Oh, so they do see a way out.
They see it, but then the darkness comes back, and they're frozen.
They can't move forward.
Can't move forward, stuck in this loop of clarity, and then lost again.
Which, now that I think about it, connects back to that whole bad deal idea.
Oh, how so?
Like, they keep going for these temporary solutions, these little fixes.
And they get nowhere.
Nowhere. They're so focused on not getting wet, they're missing the bigger picture.
That they're sheltered. They
just move.
Yeah.
And, both sources are clear. It's not just a metaphor.
Right, there are real consequences.
But there's also this hint of God's mercy and how powerful God is.
You picked up on that too.
Yeah, but I'm not seeing much mercy in this whole thunderstorm thing.
Well, verse 20 specifically says God could take away their sight and hearing completely, but doesn't.
So the question is, why not?
Why not? Exactly. Is it a chance for them to turn things around? A reminder that God's in control. It's open to interpretation.
It makes you think, that's for sure.
And that's what both sources say. The point of these verses is not just condemnation, but reflection.
It's like a wake-up call.
A wake-up call. Yeah, like, hey, we're all susceptible to this hypocrisy stuff.
We all have those moments.
And it's never too late to turn things around.
It's about being honest with ourselves.
About aligning what we do with what we actually believe.
It's interesting we're talking about this in the context of religious scripture.
Right.
But it goes way beyond that, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's about being authentic. Like, who are we really?
It's a human thing.
A human thing, exactly.
And that's why these metaphors, I think, they hit so hard.
They do, because they speak to something we all experience, regardless of religion or anything else.
Like, it gives us this language to talk about these internal struggles.
Or struggles to be better.
Exactly.
And that's what's so great about studying these texts, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
They offer us a way to look inward, to grapple with these big, messy human questions.
And what I find so cool about our deep dives is that we're doing it together.
They are.
Exploring these verses, sharing our thoughts, and hopefully, coming out with a deeper understanding, not just of the text, but of ourselves. Yeah, it does feel like we've really dug into something meaningful here.
And it's not just about understanding these ideas, right? It's about putting them into practice.
So how can someone listening actually do that? Take what we've talked about and actually use it.
Well, both these sources, they both kind of suggest, starting with this question.
Yeah.
What are the transactions you're making?
What do you mean by that?
Like, in your everyday life, are you choosing guidance over misguidance?
I love that way of looking at it.
It makes it more concrete, right?
It does, because instead of getting lost in the whole idea of hypocrisy, you're asking yourself, what am I investing in?
Exactly. Where's your energy going? Is it leading you towards, a truer way of living?
And being honest with yourself about that.
That's the first step, yeah.
It's like, the real takeaway here is that this hypocrisy thing, it's not just some ancient religious idea.
Right.
It's alive and well today.
It is. It's about the choices we make now, what we prioritize, how we choose to live.
And what's so cool is that these verses, they give us a new way to think about those choices.
Metaphors, yeah. Like, am I stuck in that rainstorm?
Am I being stubborn? Or am I willing to step into the light, even if it's uncomfortable?
Exactly.
We've been talking about some pretty heavy stuff today.
Yeah, we have.
But honestly, I feel kind of hopeful coming out of this deep dive.
Me too. I think it's because we're reminded that we have a choice.
We have the power to change.
We do. We can break free from those cycles of hypocrisy and really move towards a life that feels, more genuine.
And even when we mess up, there's always that chance to come back, to start over.
Absolutely. That's a big theme in both sources. Even when it's dark, there's still hope.
It's like that hope fuels our journey, to become better people, to grow spiritually.
I like that. It fuels the journey.
We've definitely given our listeners a lot to chew on today.
There's a lot to chew on, yeah.
So as we wrap up, what's the one thing you hope they take away from this deep dive?
One thing. I'd say, remember that even though everyone struggles with hypocrisy, everyone also has the potential to grow.
Oh, I like that.
Never underestimate yourself, your ability to change, to choose a different path.
And when you stumble, you can always find your way back.
Always.
Well said. All right, everyone, that wraps up our deep dive into hypocrisy as it's described in Surah Al-Baqarah.
It's been a good one.
It has. Thanks for being here, and we'll